Donald Trump got banned from social media because of his own law that he signed in 2018. Here's what happened. This story starts in 2018. At the time, there was a bill being proposed to deal with some of the human trafficking problems that were being accelerated by certain websites on the internet. One of the cases that up until that point had been in litigation was for a website called Backpage. They had a personal section, there was an adult personal section, and in that adult personal section, there was significant evidence of trafficking behavior that was occurring. Now, in order to combat that, there was a bill that was passed by a vote that was signed into law, the FOSTA-SESTA bill. This was signed into law in 2018 by Donald Trump. As you can see here in the headline from April 11th, 2018, Engadget, Trump signs controversial FOSTA-SESTA bill into law. The bill has been criticized as a tool for censorship. So, the reason that it was designed was to help combat trafficking. Now, whether or not that was effective is a conversation that we're not actually going to go into in this video. It was a controversial bill on the simple merits of what was being proposed, even outside of some of the broader problems that we're going to be addressing in this video. If you want to, you can go ahead and do your own research on that, read up on it. There's lots of articles about it. However, this bill was controversial and has become impactful mainly because of the unique precedent that was created when this bill was signed. What was that precedent? It was a Section 230 carve-out. Now, if you've been around on the internet for a little bit, you might have heard that term. You may have not. That's completely okay. So let's actually take a look at what this means. First, what is Section 230? So we have this article from The Verge over here. I can check the date it was published right over here, December 29th, 2020. And this is just a simple definition of Section 230. Right over here, it was passed, Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which was passed in 1996, says an interactive computer service can't be treated as the publisher or speaker of third-party content. To simplify this, when you say interactive computer service, you can basically say any internet platform or website. So they can't be treated as the publisher or speaker of third-party content. To simplify, that means user-generated content. If you publish something on social media, or if you write something in a forum and it has potential criminal liability, up until 2018, there was the protection for the platform so that they wouldn't be held liable for that third-party user-generated content. As you can see right here, this protects websites from lawsuits if a user posts something illegal, although there are exceptions for copyright violations. And some of these exceptions that we're looking at over here that have become the norm since 2018. So 2018, going back to that bill, you can see the controversial bill package, FOSTA-SESTA, has already impacted sites like Reddit, Craigslist, and Google, and that's just the start. This article was published on July 2nd, 2018. What you're able to see here is some of the intention of what the bill was, but it points out the premise right here that the bill also pokes a huge hole in a famous and long-standing safe harbor rule of the internet. That's just what we were talking about just a second before, the safe harbor rule that no provider or user of an interactive computer service shall be treated as the publisher or speaker of any information provided by another information content provider. Meaning basically the third-party user-generated content, the platform cannot be held liable for that. However, there was an exception that meant website publishers would be responsible. So, what does that mean? So, specifically when it comes to problems like trafficking, if they were to potentially be held liable for user-generated content, they are put into a bit of a pickle because they either have to make a good faith attempt to moderate, mistakes can happen, people understand, but if there is absolutely zero content moderation at all, based upon this carve out specifically for trafficking in 2018, the platform could be held liable. And we saw that in the Backpage case when they were held liable for trafficking. Let's take a quick look at that. As you can see here with this article from the Washington Post, published on April 13th, 2018, Backpage CEO called for pleads guilty in three states, agrees to testify against other website officials. Now, what that does is that created a precedent. It was the first time in internet history that a platform had ever been held criminally liable for user-generated content, specifically for trafficking. However, the way that the law works is that as long as a good faith argument can be made upon previous precedent, it's possible for there to be liability. And so what we started to see was a really aggressive ramp up in content moderation on social media platforms. Over here, you can see an article from 2019 published on the Council of Foreign Relations website with a year in review on content moderation on social media platforms in 2019. You can see over here prompted heated debate over how tech companies and government should approach content moderation. These issues will continue to play out in 2020 with important social and political consequences. Over here, you can see an abstract from the Internet Policy Review about expanding the debate about content moderation, scholarly research agendas for the coming policy debates. All of this started to ramp up after the 2018 FOSTA-SESTA rule, which was then quickly followed by the Backpage case, and the ruling in the Backpage case, which created a Section 230 carve-out. It meant that these web platforms could be held liable for user-generated content. As you can see over here in this Vox article from 2018, they would have to perpetually ward off potential legal action based on the unpredictable behavior of their users, by devoting endless resources to moderating everything their users did, by simply banning user activities altogether, or by throwing millions of dollars at litigation costs. Does this sound familiar? This article was published in 2018. I can scroll up to the top if you'd like. As you can see, July 2nd. So what we're seeing here is that the reality is that once this carve-out was created, we saw a rapid increase in content moderation on social media. Now, the other thing that was happening at the time was the electoral cycle, the 2020 electoral cycle. And to simplify this a little bit, tensions on social media were flaring up, especially after the election when Donald Trump and the Republican Party decided that they wanted to dispute the result of the election, which is all fair game. We have the courts. They brought many cases to the courts. All were thrown out. There wasn't a legitimate path for them to dispute the election. That's the end of the story. However, it was not, because history says differently. January 6th happened, and we were left with the country that for the first time had the peaceful passage of power interrupted between presidents. This led to an inflaming of tensions and led to what some people at the time believed to be drastic measures. Right in front of us over here, we have from January 8th, 2021, directly on Twitter's website, from their blog, their statement about the permanent suspension of @RealDonaldTrump. After close reviews of recent tweets from the @RealDonaldTrump account and the context around them, specifically how they are being received and interpreted on and off Twitter, we have permanently suspended the account due to the risk of further incitement of violence. Now, let's go back over here to this Verge article to the definition of Section 230 exclusions. As we can see right here, there are exceptions for copyright, sex work-related material, and violations of federal criminal law. That precedent established by the FOSTA-SESTA carve-out that Trump signed in April 2018, leading to the permanent suspension of @RealDonaldTrump from Twitter. Twitter permanently suspends Trump, citing risk of further incitement of violence. Right over here, January 8th, 2021 from NPR. Over here, TechCrunch, why Twitter says it banned President Trump. In the most simple form, by the definition of Section 230, Donald Trump is a user of Twitter. And as a user, he falls under the category of a third party and or user-generated content published onto the platform, no matter his political status and position. And if Twitter, even if you can say that what was being done was not truly inciting violence, I personally disagree with that, but some people may make that claim. Even if you say that, as long as Twitter has the reasonable belief that they could be held liable for potential criminal actions, right over here, from this Vox article in 2018. What does it do? They would have to perpetually ward off potential legal action based on the unpredictable behavior of their users, or by throwing millions of dollars at litigation costs. So if at any point of time they believe that that there can be even the slimmest legal theory that they can be criminally liable for these actions, then they are forced to suspend that account. It's basically the most simple form of covering their behind. When they have a user, whether it is an individual of influential status or if it's an individual who is just a regular person on the platform, who opens them up to potential criminal liability, they have to make the decision that protects their interest as a public company, that protects the interests of their shareholders, that allows them to retain the maximum amount of revenue and profits for their company by not risking extreme litigation. And so because of the Section 230 exclusion that was created by the FOSTA-SESTA carve-out in 2018, the one that was signed by Donald Trump and hailed as an anti-trafficking bill, led to his permanent suspension of his @real Donald Trump account on Twitter as well as other social media platforms. If you have any questions about this, feel free to drop a comment below. Feel free to like, subscribe, share this with a friend. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you later. Peace.